In this video, I'm going to show you how we can use JSON and automatically update our chart here with the latest data. And you can see here it's sliding in very nicely and it shows you 12 data points. And the moment it hits more than 12, you can see here it slides the other one out. So let's start to explore how we can do this nice effect here. In this video, we're going to focus on one of the viewers' questions, which is how to use fetch to automatically update data with JSON in Chartjs. So basically, the data is coming from JSON and we're going to update it one by one. So how are we going to do that? Well, the first thing I want to just show you where the question arises from. It came from one of my other videos about how to create a donut chart with labels outside with connecting line, which is absolutely phenomenal. This is one of my favorites. So if you scroll down here, you can see here this question came from Vinicius Mendoza. And a special thank you to Vinicius for asking the question. And this is what Vinicius asked. Great video, friend. I would like you to explain a video how to make chart that automatically updates with data in JSON. Alright, so let's start to work on that. And this will be, just a quick note, this will be a hard-coded data that we have stored in our local host. So we need to have local host, and this is our JSON file. I'll be making another one specifically for an API eventually that will be coming very soon online. But this one here covers this, how we grab the data from our JSON, and we're going to put it and show that nicely here. So what do we need to do? Well, the first thing what we need to do is we need to go here to chartjs3.com, getting started, to get the default code. So you might notice this, for some reason my Google Chrome gives this error. Anyway, I'm going to copy this code here, and once I copy this code, I go back here, and then I'm going to paste that in here. Once I paste that in here, I'm going to cut this out, paste that in there. Alright, so we have the title here matching, and then I will save that and refresh, and now we have a beautiful bar chart. So what I need to do now is start working with the fetch. Because it's a fetch, we need to be on a local host or server. So this doesn't work if you are going to be on your basic HTML file on your desktop. So what we're going to do here, well, we have this, and what I want to do, and this is very important, if you are looking for this file, I will put this file basically in the comment section. You can get the entire file, just copy paste it and save it as a JSON file. But you will see here this specific company. If you really look carefully, there are 3 companies in here, Chartflix and Chart Startup, and another one is called Chartjs or Chartjs Corporation. But this one here, Chartjs Corporation, has 24 data points. You can see here, year 1, and this is the second year. And then every other one has only 12 data points. So that will mean that we're going to focus only on this specific one here that has the most data points because it's useful. So how are we going to do this here? So if I scroll down here, what I'm going to do now here is going to work with the fetch options. So we're going to use here fetch API. So we're going to do here, first thing is here, we're going to create here a asynchronous function. And this is called our fetch data, where we basically want to fetch the data. And fetch, if you're wondering what does fetch mean? Fetch means to get the data. If you say to a dog, imagine you have a bone in your hand, you throw the bone and you say to the dog, fetch it. What it really means is that the dog will run after the bone that you have thrown and come back with the bone and bring it to you. Almost like a boomerang. So that's how you can imagine fetch. So basically fetch says, I'm throwing something out, please give me what I'm throwing out. So what are we throwing out now? Well, it will depend on what we're looking for. So we're going to work here, we say here fetch data. And then in here, we're going to first get the value where it's located. So I'm going to say a constant, and then let's grab the URL. And in this case, our URL will be the name of the file. And you can see here, this is the name of the file. And because my file here is in the same folder as the JSON file, all I can do is just grab this. If it's not in the same folder, you need to get the original folder, and from there on you just get it, or you get from localhost or whatever the starting point is, the root. Alright, so I'm going to copy this and I'm going to say here, this will be the URL or where the JSON file is located. Next, what I want to do is here, constant will be the response. And the response is basically equal to await. So we're waiting for a response from the fetch that will fetch us the URL item here. This constant, basically this here. So once we have this, what we can do here is do another constant, and this constant we can call data points. So we want to fetch not only the file, but the data within that file. So we can call this data points. Of course, you can give it other names, but I'm giving it as most logical as possible name. Then we say here await. We await for the response.json. And what this really means is the response is related to this, but then we basically parse it into JSON to make it readable for JavaScript. Because it's a JSON file, we need to make sure that JSON file becomes readable in JavaScript. So this is very important. So that's why it's parsing here. And parsing means to make something readable for, and in this case, for JS or JavaScript. So now we have this here. Let's start to work with the console log and just show you what we have, because this is important just to have a visual representation. Save this. We go back here, refresh, open up our developer tab, and let's see if we have anything. Oh, of course we have nothing here. Reason why we have nothing yet, because we didn't have anything to activate the functionality. So what I'm going to do here, just a quick one here, is to make a button. Button, I guess. There we are. And then we say here on click, and the on click will be fetch data. And I'll just say here fetch. Save that, refresh, click, there we are. So the moment we press down the button, it will trigger this phenomenal function that gives us the data. So now we're basically done with the most important one. All I have to do here now to make sure that we save this function, or at least the data of this function, to say return data points. This is very important, or else later on, if we have the other functions, we cannot use this. Basically what we're going to do here with this will be stored in memory, and then from there on we can move it one side to the other. So semicolon here, and then we can start working on that. So to do that, I will make another function here, and this function will be called the, let's say, update chart function. That is basically a nested function, because with this we can start moving things around. Why? Because this is a function in itself that is asynchronous. Asynchronous means that it's not aligned or not in chronological order being loaded. Meaning, for example, if you have two functions here, one will load, the other one will load afterwards. Or at least this will load, while the other one will not load afterwards, will not wait for each other. So basically they're loading differently from each other. So synchronized means they load one after the other. Asynchronized means they follow their own path, basically. Alright, so we have this here. So what I want to do, and I realize I need to move this down, and the reason why is later on I need to use this specific constant, and I want to make sure that we can load that by grabbing it. So now we have this here. What I want to do is the following. So we have this, I want to start working on it so that we can maybe draw at least the values in here, so we can see if this works. So what we're going to do here, and this is why I was referring to that we have these functions here. This is the nested function. I'm just going to put in here some extra enter so we have some space here. And then here, what I'm going to do is another item which will be built on from whatever we have here. Basically, these data points here. So what I'm going to say is the following. I'm going to say here fetch data. As you can see here, that's this function here. We get this function and say dot then, meaning we have this data here that we get from fetch, and after we want to do something more. So we want to keep the return values here, so we want to grab that in memory and start working with that. So we're going to say here data points, then we put in here a function arrow expression, because we're going to create a function here, and we're going to say the following. We're going to say this will be constant month, and this month will be equal to what? Well, let me explain what we're going to do here. I want to get only the company name of Chartjs organization. That's this one here, or just Chartjs company or corp. I do not want the other two, or the last two, and the reason why is because this one has the financials as 24 data points, and if you look at the others, you can see here they have financials of 7 only. I was expecting 12, but 7, that is far too less. So that's too few to work with. So I want to grab this one here with all of this data here. So this is very important for me. So I have to indicate now where exactly or what exactly I want to fetch. And I want to fetch this only, not the others. I don't care about the others. So what we're going to do here is just say in the data points. And if you wonder what is exactly then the data points, well, we did the console log already from the data points. That's basically all the data, but we need to go now deeper. We go into the financial report, which is 0, index 0, because there are basically 3 indexes here, or 3 elements with this same structure. And then in here, I need to go into the financials, and then specifically here, you can see here there's multiple items. We have a date, we have expenses, and the date is basically the month here. We have the profits, targets, and revenue. So what I want to do here for our case, we want to grab the date, which is the month label, which will be eventually shown down here, and I want to get the revenue, which would be the bar value here. So to do this, we need to pinpoint that. So we say here data points, and then we say a dot. Where we need to go? Well, you can see here financial reports, or let's see if I can grab this. Financial report 0, index 0, and then I say here again dot. Where we need to go again? We go into the financials, and the financials is also 0. So copy that. Put it in here, and basically I realized that we don't have to really get the financials and specify 0, but we're going to put in here dot map. That's fine. So the map functionality will loop through every one of these items, but now we can go be very, very specific. Alright, so we're going to say here, and what I want to do here is what I want to grab, or what I want to fetch, that's the right term, fetch, the date, which will be eventually called the month, and I want the revenue, which is the value. So I'm going to say here, first of all, I'm going to say indicate month, comma, index. Those two are important, but the month basically means just all of this here. Nothing special yet. We didn't specify anything yet. Here, because it's a function as well, so it's called a fat arrow or a function arrow expression. That's probably more nicer term to use. So we're going to say here, what I want to do return is the following. So what I want, or what I want to fetch. What is the item I want to fetch? Very specifically, I would like to fetch in the financials. I want to fetch here the date. So I say here month, which basically indicate here just these items here, the financials. And then I'll say here date. So I'm going to grab this here. Dot date. And then once I have this semicolon. So once I have this here, what I could do here now, just to make sure you understand that and see what it does. In here we have the fetch data, so I have to make sure we have this one here. All I want to do now is to grab this month here. If I do a console log, we should see here something. Refresh. Click on this to activate. Alright. The fetch data is not defined. Alright, let me explain what's going on here. So why is it not? Because we have created or we nested the function in another function. So we need to make sure that this update chart will be placed in here. So if I save this, we should now have this. There you are. So now we get this, we get 2 values. So I want to now clean up the values of what we have. So let's see here, we have this console log of the data points. 105 can be deleted because I only want this console log of the month. Save this, refresh, press this, and there we are. So we get all of the data points here, which is only related to our specific chart company, or chartjs.org, or company, or organization, or a corporation. It's one or the other. So we have the first one. So what I can do now is just simply this. If I go to remove these labels here, or at least this label here, this one I can go to comment out, and I'll just comment out this as well. So what I want to do now is I want to just grab this and just say update chart. I'm going to say here my chart, and this is the reason why I pushed the function down, because now I can use my chart. Say here dot update. Alright, so once we did that, we're not done yet, because what are we going to update? Well, specifically this point here, the labels. So how to get there? Well, from my chart to config, and from config to data, and from data we go to labels. So that's what we're going to grab here. So I'm going to say my chart dot config dot data dot labels equals, what is it? The month here. If I save this now, refresh. Alright, there's nothing, but if I click on fetch, alright, month is not defined, fair enough. Let's see what's going on here. Why is this not defined, or what's going on here? Of course, it is within that part. So what I need to do is I need to move everything up. So I'm going to cut this out, move it up, because you can see here the value is in this block here, the fetch data block. So we have to put it in here, and I'm going to make sure that this has a proper indentation. Save that, refresh, click. There you are. So we get everything instantly. We don't want it. We want them one by one being shown. So we have to still work on that. But don't worry. Most important part is we already have the data working for fetch. So what I want to do first is get the other data, which is the values. And then we can start working with the more advanced item. So I'm going to copy this. Or, well, I don't want to copy that. I'll just do it step by step. It's easier to follow. So then I'm going to say here, constant value. Or let's say the data. Well, I guess value is better because we have another term for constant data. So that will be too confusing. So we're going to do here, constant value equals, basically very similar. We're going to back to data points. That is this one here, remember. So we're going to start here. That's why we have this here. This one will fetch only specific items with the month. This one will be specifically for the date. Or sorry, not for the date, for the values. So, well, if I could do maybe a console log here for the item. Let's do a console log here. Now we have this. Console log. Data points. I want to just show you again so you can follow along. Save that, refresh. Press this, alright. There we are. We have this here. You can ignore that for now. And then what I want to do here is basically this. We are in Chartjs Corporation, and in this Chartjs Corporation we have the financials, but now I don't want the date. No, I want the revenue. Remember that. So that's what we're going to do here. So we can just delete this again. So now we know where we have to go. So we say value data points. And then it is again in the financial report. Where you say your dot financials. There you can see financials. Exactly the same methodology. Financials dot map. So we do another map array. We're going to loop through every specific item. We also have this arrow function and the curly braces. So what I'm going to say here, instead of month, I just say here value. I say index. So I'm not sure if we're going to use the index. Might be necessary. I realize it might be necessary, but we're going to see. So the next thing what I want to do here is the following. We have this here. What I want to return here is now the value dot. And then I'll get here the revenue. There you are. Semicolon. Alright. So once we have this, we save this now. And we can do even here a value. Save that. Refresh. And if I click on this, this is here that shows everything, but you can also see here all our data points, which is correct. There are in total of 24 items. So this works nicely, and if I now move this in here, I can just copy. I guess we just copy that. I'm going to grab this value here, but this one must be adjusted. So how do we get here now the data? Instead of data labels, no, we need to go to data, and then or data sets, and then data. So I'm going to say here data and data sets. And this data sets here will be, we can just put it here 0, that's fine. And dot data. So if I save this now, refresh, press this. There you are. Now everything is starting to work nicely. I want to put them in now one by one. Alright, so what are we going to do next? We have everything working, at least all the data that we need to fetch is showing up nicely. So what we're going to do here is the following. We're going to play around with a few items. So the first thing what I want to do here, and remember this is still within this update function or update chart function. So what I want to do here, this here we can all concise that, or at least condense that more. What I will say here, a set interval. So what I want to do, and the reason I'm doing this is I want to push or activate this function every single time, or every 1000 milliseconds, meaning every second it should be activated. So I'm going to save this now and refresh. You will see here now what is happening. There you are, it comes. And probably if you push it again, it should do something again. Alright, it does something, but I'm not sure if it's really showing. So what we could do here maybe is a console log. let's say console log show. Say I should expect here now every second it will be showing. There you are. Every second it shows this console log. Here it doesn't show anything anymore because there's no more. There's only 20 data points or 24 data points. It doesn't push them, so they will not add up. So we need to work on this now. So alright, so just to reduce the amount of memory of our browser, I'm just going to delay that with 100 seconds. So refresh here. There you are. Nothing happens now. That's fine. We're going to work on it. So what we're going to do now is the following. We want to first of all push the value. So how are we going to push the value? Now to push the value, we need to go here. We have this one here. We grab the entire value, but this is not what we really want. What I really want to do is the following. I want to say here, basically, I want to push the my chart data. Alright, so we just can put it in there. And we say here, labels dot push. And what I'm going to push now is the following. I want to push the month value in here. But the month value should be a index number. So I'm going to say here, let's say 0 for now. And if I do this, I comment out this here, and I will do exactly the same. We should see here now a very nice updated month value of the first month. And here I push, this should be the data set with the data. So I'm going to grab this. Oh, not like that, but I'm going to need to remove the labels because we're going to my config data set, from data to data sets, data, push what? Value. Save that. Refresh, and now, alright, we're missing here something, of course, so let's do this. Every second now, there should be now a push value. There you are, and there you are. So this is starting to show nicely, but now we have to figure out how can we look through these numbers here. So what I'm going to do here, slow this down, save that, refresh, alright, so it doesn't make it too heavy for us. We can delete all of this. And now what I want is, instead of the show here, we don't need this anymore. We have all of this here, we can start working on it. So how do we solve this one here? Well, for this, I'm going to use a trick. And this is the only way how I can do it. So I need to have what we call a global value, or I just put a value as hoisting. We're going to put it at the very high, and after that we're going to update that. So what I'm going to say here is the following. I'm going to say here let, and then we say here hoisted value equals 0. And what I really need to do here is basically like a for loop I++. That's what we're going to do here eventually. So I give it a different name to avoid that if ever we have somewhere else that it will be impacted. And this here is the only way as of now I can figure out. I was hoping to find it within here, but it's not possible, or at least so far. Anyway, that doesn't matter so much. What I want to do here in the update, basically I want to say here the following, hoisted value ++. So basically we will be adding the value consistently. So if I grab this now, and what I want to do here, I'm going to put this here in the index, save that, refresh, we should see something here. And of course it doesn't show because you need to put 1000 seconds, save that, refresh. Alright, so now it's being added here step by step with all of the data that we have from our JSON file. So that's beautiful. So it starts to look very nice. There you are, and then eventually here, you can see here this was correct. And here this is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's why these are very tiny bars. So, but here's an issue. You can see here, the moment it hits December 2022, no more data. That's one. But also, it keeps on going into infinity. Well, at least this one here, that's alright. Basically, this is fine. But what I really want to solve here, this is the real issue, is this infinity adding up. Because this doesn't make any sense. Because after a while, as you can see here, it starts to get very condensed. It's too hard to read. And if ever we would have an item that's like an API where you keep on getting new data, you have a big problem if you have one with 1,000,000 data points. So let's solve that item here. So to do this, I'm going to show you just a very, very simple trick. This is just JavaScript arrays. So what we're going to do now is the following. We're going to create an if statement. And this if statement is very straightforward. We will just say here, my chart. So what we want to do is we want to measure what is the length of the labels. And if the labels hits, for example, 12 data points, at that very moment, I want to make sure that the very first data point will be removed so that the next one will just easily slides in and nothing happens, no problem. So we're going to say if and I say my chart.data.labels, and I say .length, and if the length would be larger than, let's say 13, or equal or larger to 12, well, I guess 13 is fine. If it's larger than 13, or maybe 12, yes, because we want only 12 dates. In that case, if that is true, what I want to do here is I want to start removing certain data points. So I'm going to say here, and this is just JavaScript array lessons labels dot shift, and shift means removing the very first value in the array. So I'm going to do the same here, and I'm doing it here up. I'm going to show you later on what. We have here this data point as well, then specifically this here. I'm going to copy this, put it in there, save that, refresh. Alright, you can see here it goes into infinity. That's alright. And what I will do is just to, for the sake of it, let's reduce this, or increase the speed of it. So here, it should be added here every 2 per second. Alright, so we get this here. It's beautiful. It's starting to work here. Nice, nice, nice. And then here, eventually, what will happen, it will cut it off here, but it will just keep on going, and this is beautiful. Alright, so this works. So what I want to give you an extra highlight is do not put this down here. And I sometimes do this as well, but you will see you get a very ugly design. So if I do this, save, refresh, you will see here after we hit the 12, it will give you a weird design. You can see here, it looks like it's not working. And the reason why it doesn't work is just simply this. It is working. However, because you have this here, it's getting confused. It will first add, and then it deletes, and then sometimes what we have to do here is to refresh or to reload, and it will destroy not only everything, it will destroy also the effect. We have this here, and you can see here, but usually if I do this and then do this again, and open up, doesn't show. No, it doesn't even want to show. You see, it's too heavy. Alright? So that doesn't work at all. Don't do that. Put it up here. This gives you the smooth transition and works all fine. Go back here. There you are. You can see here now it will work nicely once we hit the December period. There you are. You can see it here immediately. It just shows it nicely. So this is basically how to do it. And if you like this video and maybe you want to go even deeper in fetch and how to learn more, I would highly recommend you to watch maybe this specific video here on how to use fetch, use advanced JSON in Chartjs.